Greetings, it's Charles McCall again with Mentoring Growing Leaders. And I'm going to share with you two short lessons about the need to evaluate our ministry. So this is prepared for churches, for schools, for businesses, for organizations, families for that matter. But it's important for us to evaluate what we're doing. Now, I hope that you set goals. Now, that's another whole lesson. I have two lessons on strategic planning. You can go to Mentoring Growing Leaders YouTube and check that out. If you're not setting goals, looking for a year, 2, 3 years down the road, then don't worry about this video. Go back to that one. In fact, you go back to the previous one, which is vision. I have 2 videos on vision at Mentoring Growing Leaders YouTube as well. But there's a need to evaluate. We need to determine how well we're doing. Are we going toward our target? Are we making any kind of a progress? What are our strengths and what are our weaknesses? What do we need to adjust? What do we need to change? What do we need to drop and kill and leave along the wayside? And so it's essential that we evaluate. And so let's say, for example, we're talking about a church. If we want to evaluate our church, we're going to evaluate the whole church. How are we doing as a whole church? But not only the whole church, but evaluate the youth ministry, the children's ministry, the worship ministry, the finance ministry, the pastoral care ministry. All the different areas and ministries of your church need to be evaluated as well. This should at least be an annual activity for the church. Same for an organization. Is that if you have evaluating the finances, evaluating the staff training, leadership training, evaluating your various projects, different aspects of your project. So your business as well, your service, your marketing, your staff development, your customer relations, all of that. And your school the same way, evaluating your students, evaluating your teachers, evaluating your finances, evaluating your training. And so for all of these areas of our work and of our ministry and of our life, they need to be evaluated. And so you can evaluate the whole thing, lump sum, or you need to evaluate as well each different ministry. As I said, this should be done at least once a year. It takes some time, but the most of the time is going to be setting up your standard. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you about in the second video. Is so for a church, I'm going to be talking about churches in particular, but what is our standard? Because in order to evaluate, we have to have something we're comparing where we're at now with where we're going. And so we have to have a standard. We have to have goals. We have to have a vision so that we know where we're going, so we have something to evaluate with. But first of all, I want to share with you the 9 essential steps in accomplishing any task, any project, or any program. The 9 essential steps. They're essential. Every one of them are essential. The 9 essential steps to bring any project, program, ministry to successful completion. And so you're going to want to write this down. So grab a piece of paper or grab your computer or grab your phone and get ready to just type these 9 steps down, and you do them in this order. You do all 9 of them, and you do them in this order. Most churches, businesses, organizations, and schools do not do this. Let me ask you this. Do you want to have good success? Or do you want to have mediocre success? Or do you want to flounder? In your business, in your school, in your organization, in your church, my guess is that you want to have pretty good success. I'm sure you don't want to flounder. You wouldn't be wasting your time and money and efforts for your business, school, organization, or church to flounder. You might be satisfied with mediocre success, but I think most people watching this video, you want good success. You want to excel the best that you can with what you have. I believe that about you. Is that right? Say yes. And so you're going to want to follow these 9 steps, this process. And so write them down. And the first one is vision. And again, this is going to be a summary. Everything starts with vision. You'll hear me say that over and over again. And as I said, I've got 2 lessons, at least 2 lessons on YouTube in my Leadership 101 course on vision, the importance of creating vision, how you get vision, how you cast it, and how you follow through. Everything starts with vision. You must know, at least generally, where you're going so you can evaluate if you're going to get there or not. And so everything starts with vision. You have to be able to see, this is the kind of church that I want. And for my training, I've created a little form that I give to church planters. And as I train them in church planting, they fill out this form. And it helps them think through what their vision is. You can do the same thing for your business, your organization, or your school. And I'm happy to consult you on this. If it's possible, we can do it. If you're near where I live or if you're far away, we can work on that. But everything starts with vision. What do you want your school to look like? What kind of students? What kind of teachers? What kind of education? What kind of influence in society? And so everything starts with vision. And then after vision, then you create goals. So this is our vision. This is where we want to be in the faraway future, at least generally. And so what are some goals that we could establish to accomplish by December 31st of this year? And so I'm recording this in August, and so you could start right now. You could start actually planning. September, October are the planning times for the following year. You don't wait for the following year to plan. You follow in the months prior to the upcoming year. And so what kind of goals by December 31st of the next year could you accomplish? Okay, and again, if let's say church is easy for me to do, but we could do business, school, or organization. How many people do you want in your Sunday attendance? How many people in cell groups? How many people going through your discipleship courses? How many visitors do you want to have? And so goals are often associated with numbers, but you can also establish goals that I want our congregation to know clearly about the doctrine of God, the doctrine of the Bible, the doctrine of salvation, the doctrine of spirits, the doctrine of the second coming, the doctrine of eternal things. And so maybe it's a knowledge. You want goals that are established by a certain knowledge level or experience level. We want them to be able to share the gospel, want them to be able to lead someone to Christ. And so these are not just number goals, but they're activity goals, or character goals, you know. And so you need to establish your goals. And so you go through, I've done this in our church with the youth, and I've established the general goals for the church, for the youth, for the children. We had discipleship classes, we had life skills classes, and so I established the general goals, and then I gave it to the manager and I let them work out the details of what they would like to see within the framework that I've given them. So you establish goals for the following year, and then your strategy. First the vision, then the goals, and the strategy is how are we going to get to our goals. And so strategy changes. Goals and strategies for that matter can be adjusted as you move along during the year. That's why you need to evaluate at least once or twice during the year. So the strategy is, so how are we going to get new people into the church? How are we going to get people to know about and understand clearly about the doctrine of God or the doctrine of salvation, or how are we going to get them to be able to share the gospel? And so strategy answers the question, how? How are we going to accomplish our goals? This takes time. It takes time for you to get alone. To establish vision, goals, and strategy, you need alone time. And I'm not talking about an hour in the morning. I'm talking about minimum 2 or 3 days, multiple times throughout the year. And after you establish your strategies, then you establish your budget. You don't establish your budget first. There's many schools, organizations, businesses, and churches that they establish their budget for the following year, and then they establish their goals and strategy. Beep, 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 beep. That's opposite. No, you establish your goals, your strategies, and then you ask, how much does it cost for us to do this? Then you establish your budget. Don't get the cart before the horse. Number 5, then staffing. What kind of people will I need? You might want to put staffing before budget because that has something to do with budget as well. But what kind of people do I need to achieve these goals and to accomplish this strategy? And so you figure out what kind of volunteers do I need, what kind of staffing do I need, what kind of skills do they need. You see, all this takes time, but it is very worthwhile. If you want to live in mediocrity, never mind about all of this. If you want to flop, Never mind about all this. But if you want to succeed, and if you want to have some good success, I really recommend that you spend the time to think through all of this. Vision, goals, strategy, staffing. And again, staffing is not just paid staff, but volunteer staff. Budget. And then after that, training. What kind of training do I need to give that staff? And so if you want to move them to a new level, you might need to consult other people for this, but what kind of training to move them to a new level? I have another lesson on 5 levels of leadership. You can check Mentoring Growing Leaders YouTube. You can find my essential lesson on 5 levels of leadership, because you're probably not going to bring in, unless you've got a big salary you can give someone, you're probably not going to be giving people a high salary. And so you're going to be bringing them maybe at a lower level, and you're going to have to find training somewhere. Bring trainers in. Again, I've got Leadership 101 and Leadership 201, and so I've created these specifically to help you train your staff for your church, for your school, for your business, or for your organization. And here's another key. Again, this can get tedious, and I don't like tedious things, but there are some things that simply must get done. Is that every new person that comes into a new role, they need training. They need an orientation. They need to be brought into your vision, brought into your goals, brought into your strategy, brought into your budget, brought into expectations that you have for them. And so every new person, so many churches and organizations and businesses and schools, they bring a new person in and they put them in the slot. There is no orientation. They're not brought into the big picture. They're not on the same page. I will tell you, that will eventually create problems. You don't want that. Again, it's a system. You create a system. Once you get the system in place, well, then it runs itself for a while. And then you come to the next one. Number 7 is oversight. Someone has to oversee all of these. Oversight just means you got to check up on it. Now, I used to lead a church, a campus in our city of 3 million people, and the campus was on the north side of the city. I lived on the south side of the city. I had to drive through an hour and a half traffic to get there, and it was just exhausting for me. But I had not only did I have to go to be there on Sundays, but I had to go from time to time, maybe once every 6 weeks, just to pop in on the children's ministry, pop in on the youth ministry, pop in on the women's event, pop in on the discipleship classes, just to pop in and to check it out. Somebody has to do that. And if it's not you as a senior leader, it needs to be someone who has your eyes, your heart, and your understanding. Thus the need for making disciples and training leaders and bringing people into your way of thinking so that you multiply yourself, you duplicate yourself. Okay, that's called discipleship. And so you or someone needs to go check up. Are they moving along within the guidelines, within the parameters? Are they accomplishing what we've wanted them to accomplish? Are they doing it generally in the way that we want them to do it? Somebody has to oversee. Somebody has to check up on it every couple months at least. You can just pop in for the event or for half of the event just to see how it is. I'm telling you, if you don't do this, it's likely to deteriorate. And you don't want that, man. Then you got to start all over again. The 8th step is evaluation. After you check in on it, then you evaluate it. You evaluate it according to your vision, your goals, and your strategy. That are they moving toward the vision? Are they moving toward the goals? Are they using the strategy that you created at the beginning of the year? And so then you evaluate how are they doing. And then the 9th and final step is that you adjust. You make adjustment. Is that you either adjust your vision, goals, or strategy, or you adjust the staffing, or you adjust the budget, or you adjust what's going on in the program. And so this is just normal. So again, I'm going to remind you one more time. Get your pen and paper out, get your computer, your tablet, your phone out, write these down. Non-essential. All 9 of these are non-essential steps in the process for anything worthwhile to come to a successful completion. Number 1, vision. Number 2, goals. Number 3, strategy. Number 4, budget. Number 5, staffing. Number 6, training. Number 7, oversight. Number 8, adjustment, evaluation. Number 9, adjustment. But again, you can go to my YouTube, Mentoring Growing Leaders YouTube, and you can check out the many different kinds of videos on some of these subjects and other subjects that I believe will be worthwhile for you. Now, we're going to move on to the second video in this short 2-video series on the need to evaluate your church or your ministry.